RealTuners Radio.
Interested in learning how to tune electronic fuel injection live in person with the guys from RealTuners? We have 2-day courses in dyno shops across the country. Register for all of these at RealTuners.com. Click on RealTuners Live Classes. If you'd like to bring 2 or more people, talk to us about group discounts. For more info or to make a reservation, go to RealTuners.com or message us at RealTuners LLC on Facebook. Learn how to tune your own standalone EFI systems like Holley, FuelTech, Megasquirt, Haltech, Fast, and others on the chassis dyno. Includes topics such as traction control, individual cylinder tuning on a budget, and power adders. Upcoming class schedules are as follows. EFI Essentials in Northwest Arkansas, March 10th and 11th, and Dallas-Fort Worth, March 24th and 25th. GM Factory PCM using HP tuners at Shore Tuning near Lexington, Kentucky, April 7th and 8th. Holley EFI at 417 Motorsports in Springfield, Missouri, April 21st and 22nd. Advanced Standalone Tuning in Lexington, Kentucky, April 28th and 29th. EFI Essentials in Detroit, Michigan, May 12th and 13th, and May 26th and 27th in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Then, Holley EFI at 417 Motorsports in Springfield, Missouri, June 9th and 10th. These classes are designed to help you get your project running successfully in a course taught by people who actually do this kind of stuff for a living.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to RealTuners Radio, episode 39. Tonight, gracing you with their presence is us, the panel of RealTuners, including but not limited to Chris Delgado from ProSpeed, John Bewley from Little John's Motorsport Solutions, Tom Sewell of Fuel Injector Development, James Short from Shore Tuning, Mark Dahlquist, Throttles Performance, Bill Fowler from Bear Brakes, Doug and Andy Cook from Motion Raceworks, Scott Evans with Helix Tuning, Tom Vigue from 3V Performance, Cody Bruce of Nano Nitrous, Chad Reynolds of Bangshift.com, and me, Rye Klemp from Bull City Speed. And now a man who some say was actually the inspiration behind the hit animated movie Trolls, Scott Clark, Real Tuners.
We just get better every week.
Rye, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Well, what he does is he gives me that file 38 seconds before we go live. I literally am, I didn't even listen to it.
The dragon troll.
And I hit the play button and I'm just like, what have I gotten myself into here? What's he going to say? What is he going to say? Well, it was no Pizzeria crack. I think Justin Brumley pretty much put the icing on the cake with that this week. But
Yeah, I think we beat that horse.
I still think we one episode we need to get together and do this, and it needs to be a question and answer episode, and we need to turn it into a drinking game.
Oh
God,
I'd be down for that tonight. Almost. It's been one of those fun days. Oh, justice for sale.
Terrible idea.
Sorry.
Oh, that sounds like a perfect idea to me.
Oh, mercy. So
I don't know if he could keep up with the mute button.
No.
The further we got into that.
I think, did everybody get their lecture? What we can't talk about tonight. Okay, so don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
let's talk about the weather. Talk about anything other than fuel injection.
The weather. I was waiting to see how long it would take us. We need to have a bet behind the scenes on how long it takes for somebody to mention the weather during the opening of the show. 60
degrees today. I mean, I always talk about the weather up here because that's just like what us like Midwest folks do anyway. Oh, how's the weather?
70 all day long.
So,
That's because it's by the hour.
Right. It
Meanwhile,
does, man.
I'm
It
in
was
the
14 yesterday and 60 today up here in Omaha.
Yeah.
And I'm in the only state, I think, that has pollen on their car and then covered it with snow.
It's a sign we're getting old.
Well, in Kentucky for the last 2 days, I woke up with snow and it was 50 degrees by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 days in a row.
Wow.
So, it gets turned around pretty quick. Kevin, we couldn't do a drinking game with Pizzeria. I mean, we only have 2 hours, and somebody would have to get. We had to get somebody drunk before the night's over.
I can get a good buzz on that. That stuff was
just see who can get full on Kool-Aid first.
Crazy. Can't handle that Pizzeria.
So in automotive news, I registered for Drag Week.
Hey.
Congratulations.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Welcome to the club.
Hey, Bill's here.
Yeah.
I'm stoked on that. Drag Week registration went live, 2 weeks ago? Or no, last Saturday. Not the most recent, but the one before.
Sold out in 6 or 7 minutes.
Sold out in 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, me and my wife were frantically typing on 2 laptops at the same time. And she treed me, got the card info in first, and got submit, and we got registered. So I got plan A, which is the Mustang, and then B and C all sitting in the driveway. So one way or another, we're going.
That is awesome.
Hey, Bill's here.
Yeah.
Half the time you can just show up and they let you in.
I'm stoked on that.
I don't
Drag
know.
Week
I know
registration went
anybody who's gotten
live
turned away.
2 weeks ago, or no, last Saturday. Not the most recent, but the one before.
Sold out.
Everybody's all
right, we're
confused
back
now too.
No, everybody's confused. It's all right. They're going to be about 10 seconds.
I ordered another drink.
And they'll get it. I'm going to
sorry guys.
Here in a minute.
Scott divided by 0.
Right. There's a big black hole in my basement. Hold on.
So, Rye, I think you may be onto something about the whether who gets in, because they cut off the wait list at 500.
Oh. Yeah, I saw like some of the emails. They're like, "Hey, you're 99 through 200 or 200 through 250 or whatever it is." Like they don't give you an exact number, but when we had Keith Turk on here, he said that nobody's ever been turned away that showed up, but this probably is going to be the first year
that they actually turn people away. That's what Keith said. Yeah. Yep. But
yeah,
still show up because
be
it's
at capacity.
Fun to spectate that first day anyway. Even if you don't get in. But it's a cool event. Something you got to do once in your life. I see all these guys are like, I was going to go, but my car probably won't be ready and I really can't commit. I'm like, nope, not how you do it, man. You're going to miss out in life. You're going to miss out on so many great things.
you wait until the last 2 months and you have a mad thrash during the last 8 weeks. You get it ready and you go.
Yep.
I mean, I thought that was a requirement for going on Drag Week.
I refuse
to procrastinate.
Yeah, I can't live like that, dude. That would, I feel like I'm drowning.
Oh, I mean, you're the only one that would. I mean, dude, if your car is ready for Drag Week more than 6 weeks ahead of schedule,
something's wrong.
You've got everybody beat by like 5.5 weeks.
By 6 weeks, actually.
Well, I was going to give them somebody at least a 3-day cushion to be prepared, to load the trailer and get
Everyone does what Doug does. Show up, test, figure it out over the next 4 days.
Oh, yeah. Wire it in the tech line.
Oh, Doug. Cook. Hell yeah. I don't know if Andy or Doug are on, but that was great. Last year's Drag Week was just... I mean, actually, they plowed through it really calm. It was pretty funny. Brad had a blowout. I think I had a blowout. Andy and Doug stayed calm the entire time. They're like, look, we're just having a good time. And then we went back and got serious and got it figured out like a couple weeks after the event was over, and broke off some 7s in that car, which was cool. But it's I mean, I work with guys like Bill. I work with McIntyre every year, and I just pretty much block out 3 weeks before the event. Just say, all right, I'm going to be working on somebody's junk, getting them ready to go. That's what I spend most of my time doing.
Yeah, I just don't want to be. I've never been a last minute kind of person. I've always hated that wait till the last minute and then it's the night before. I'm not above pulling an all-nighter, but if it's something like if you're just shooting yourself in the foot due to terrible planning, that is like it's a pet peeve. I understand there's gonna be stuff that pops up like catastrophic failures or something that you just simply couldn't plan for, something breaking. That I get, but I'm not gonna do it to myself.
Yeah, that's your military training coming through.
Yeah, I suppose.
You've been in the military too long for it to be done any other way.
Yeah, it gets ingrained into you and beat into your head.
Yes,
it's a point of frustration.
Still one of the coolest things you'll ever do with your hot rod. Going to drag week. It's a must do.
Yeah,
it's a must do. Rocky Mountain Race Week has still got open slots for those of you who are maybe in the Midwest or want to check something out. That's still got opening slots, not worried about not making it. And it's a little bit even more chilled out than Drag Week is. I had more fun on the last 2 Rocky Mountain Race Weeks than I did on the prior Drag Weeks so far. And it was mainly because I'm kind of past or over the let's be in a magazine thing. But it's just kind of like racers having fun with their race cars.
Amen, brother.
Hey. Bang Shift Chad made it on here. Yeah. What do you say, Chad? You going to go on Rocky Mountain Race Week this year?
Yep. Yeah,
Right
we're
on.
going to take the wagon as its final hurrah. And then we're going to retire it from drag racing because there's nothing smart about trying to go fast
In a way.
4,500-pound car.
Oh, still very
That's
cool,
at
though.
every Hellcat and CTSV owner.
Oh, I do. But that also is because they're retarded because they're Mopar guys. So every one of those guys is a complete retard weirdo. So that's just my personal opinion.
The opinions expressed on the RealTuners Radio do not necessarily reflect the opinion of the whole panel.
I'm putting it up for sale on podcast.
And not only that, let's take a car, let's put 700 horsepower in it because that's what's required to move the giant turd. And then let's put probably the worst posi unit in the history of automobiles in the car. And then let's hand them to anybody who can write a check. The reason that I hate them is you'll laugh at Fontana one weekend we were doing test and tune. And if Daphne's car wasn't so much quicker than the Hellcat she was next to, she would have got run into not only once, not twice, but 3 different times by the same guy because every time he left the starting line, he would almost hit the 60-foot cone before being in the other lane. Because, again, if you write a check, you can have anything you want.
That's the theme today, isn't it, though?
Yeah.
Yeah. Justice for sale.
It's my big thing. It's the other deal is that drag racing is being ruined by all the guys that somehow think they need to be staged like their, buddy is Austin Coyle putting John Force in the lights at an NHRA national event. If you can't stage a car where you're sitting within 3 inches of the factory location, then you don't have a business driving a shopping cart. So go away.
There were people in my class this weekend. It's a guy that owns a pro mod, and it's his wife and their daughter run the whole organization, and they stage it themselves. I mean, they don't need any help. And it was also one of the, I guess, a record holder pro mod for Roots Blown pro mods, the Mojo car out of Southwest Missouri.
Okay.
But anyway, it's they just went to screw blower though, because it was like 50 pounds of extra weight for a 400 horsepower gain. But anyway, they showed up in my class, and it was kind of funny. They were cracking jokes about the same thing. They're like, listen, if a guy and 2 chicks can stage their pro mod, and one of the girls actually tunes the car too. She came to my EFI class, Amanda Hoover. Shout out to Amanda. It was pretty cool meeting her, man. She's one of the smartest people in the classroom too. Anyway, she was joking about how this kind of cracking the same jokes you were. It's like we seem to get it done.
Yeah.
If you're taller than 5'6", you don't need help putting the front tire into the pre-stage beam.
Well, no. Here's the thing: if you don't have a problem driving to the grocery store, in other words, if you somehow pull up to a signal light and you're not all the way in the middle of the intersection, or you're not 30 feet back from the crosswalk, then I think you could probably stage a car to drag strip. I mean, it's not really that hard.
Mr. Fowler.
Gentlemen, I beg to differ on this. As we speak, I'm here at the North Phoenix Ballet recruiting my next backup girl.
Yeah.
Because I had a chance over last weekend to see a person who had these wonderful pictures of Jungle Pam from back in the day. And I think we're really missing out on one of the real legacies of drag racing, which is the proper backup girl.
Tricky Puff is going to love that.
That's a completely different thing. I mean, a backup girl is required because the car's going in reverse, and unless you're an owl that can turn your head 180 degrees, how in the hell are you supposed to see which way you're backing the car up?
I never realized it was a car backing up.
I still hate all of you. I think backup girls, if you want to have some hot girl out there dancing around so you can look at them, knock yourself out. But if you can't back a car up and be in your stripes as well, then again, no business driving.
Better to have a hot girl driving the car or tuning it.
Yeah, I mean, Daphne's car does these really wonderful, like 300-foot long burnouts. It's a riot. And I didn't really know that until we were at Denton and I started doing a burnout. And I was like, I wonder how far this thing will do a burnout
in. Yep.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm at 300 feet passing my camera guy and I'm like, maybe I should stop doing this burnout now. And so I stopped and backed up and Cole's like, dude, what the hell was with the big long burnout? I'm like, it just looked like it would be fun. So why not?
Inspired by John Force.
Yeah. And backing it up is not a big deal. I don't know. And I would also argue if you really want to go that, I am in a radial car and God, if I'm off by an inch, then it's going to ruin the whole day, blah, blah, blah. Then I would say, A, most of those guys are complete dumbasses and can't back somebody up into their own tracks anyway. But B, if that is your concern, dude, for $39 on Amazon, you can buy a backup camera and a screen and the whole deal, man. You could put that sucker right there where you could absolutely see your own tire. I mean, just think about how trick you could be.
I've actually done that for someone. That's kind of funny you say that. Not for that reason, but the camera ended up catching all that stuff because they had the car outfitted with all kinds of stuff to try and catch suspension and chassis issues. That's kind of funny.
Oh, there you go. See?
But it ended up getting that same exact view that was funny. It's like, man, if I had to put that on a screen in the car, I don't need any of y'all's help.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, dude, my Kenwood double-din CD player that I put in my truck has got the guidelines on it for like backing up to a trailer.
That's perfect.
I mean,
mine too.
It should be real easy to set that up. We can set that up because they're adjustable. You can adjust them and you can make it line up on the tire tracks.
I have that stereo on my Suburban. I am 100% with you, dude. You ought to be able to just make the adjustment. And because you get to set the guidelines. So why not?
Right.
I think it's perfect in every way.
Hell, I mean, shit, why not? I mean, we can get, you can get a screen. It'd only be like a 2 or 3 pound weight penalty on something like that,
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that matters. I laugh at all these people that are like, oh my God, that's going to cost weight.
Dude, Chad,
you've been racing real cars for too long.
Do you have a March meet? Is your March meet this weekend?
No, we just finished it.
Oh,
it was last weekend.
How did it go? Yeah. Man, I'm sorry. I was doing a class. I didn't catch any of it.
No, it was good. It was cool. We had fun. It was me and Mike Dunn doing all the hosting. And we also had Jason Galvin, who is a cool racer, and he's the morning news anchor in Bakersfield on ABC or something. And super cool dude. He did our pit reports and top end interviews, and then Mike Dunn and I did everything in the studio, and then I did a bunch of stuff in the staging lanes too, and it was awesome. Mike Dunn is such a cool guy to hang out with. I'd met him a few times, but I'd never worked with him like that.
I mean, that is the awesome Mike Dunn, dude. That guy's kind of a legend, and he seems really cool.
Oh yeah, dude, 22 NHRA national event wins. I mean, the guy kind of knows what he's doing, and he's won a March Meet and Indy and puts them both on the same level. Like, that's pretty cool.
March Meet's a big deal, man. I try to get people to understand that the nostalgia stuff is just crazy competitive.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. And it was fun. We had a really good time. Dude, Dunn is hilarious. He and I, like, we're working together like we've been doing it for years after only about 5 minutes. And man, some of the stories that he told of, like, hanging out with Roland Leong and, all those years. And I don't know. You know what I will do? I will reach out to Dunn and see if I can get him on the podcast.
Oh, that would be super cool, man. That would be way awesome.
He has a million stories that cannot be told in public, which are absolutely awesome. But he also has some stuff that you'll, like, shake your head at and laugh at when he tells you that he can tell you also. So, it's
Dan
like,
Parker's listening tonight. Says, man, I drove a Pro Mod, would carry the front 300 feet, no lineup person, 0.968.
Yes, see?
And the 60.
Mike,
he's blind. That's awesome.
Look at
Dan,
this,
you're the man.
Look at this bullshit. Man, look at this bullshit from Mike Perduto talking about fucking wheelie bars.
Yeah,
what the hell is a wheelie bar?
I saw that.
Where is that? Where are you looking at the chat, by the way? Where can I follow
so there's 3 places. There's a YouTube. The YouTube, you can search RealTuners Radio on YouTube and you find us quick, the 38, episode 39. Or the Facebook on my go to Scott Clark's Facebook and there's a live video playing right now. That's where most of the people are commenting right now.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Keith Turk said Tanya says hello. Greetings, Miss Turk.
Hello, Keith Turk.
And Tanya.
And Dan Parker, I've not been ignoring you, dude. I know you're listening. It's been crazy around here.
Welcome to Chad's world, Dan.
Yeah. If you're not at Redline trying to hold on to a wheelie bar, then you're not doing it right.
You guys, there was a YouTube video.
How many backup people do we need to have exactly? Has anybody figured out what the optimum number of backup people is?
7.
6.
I think you have to have you have to have at least a minimum of 6 people that you could possibly run over when you do your burnout incorrectly, because that seems to be the number. I think at South Georgia you actually are not allowed into one of Duck's races unless you have exactly 400 more idiots than you need in order to race.
Well, they have to line them against the walls to make sure you don't scratch the retaining wall.
I know. And my favorite part about that was at Denton. In fact, Gene Nicodermus, who runs Denton North Star Dragway, amazing racetrack, super cool man. Like, everything about the RTRA is awesome. Like, I love that guy, right? But we're there and we're running, and I'm sitting there in the water box, and there's all these guys stacked up against the wall, and I thought, I'm going to show them what the wagon will do. So I wagged the tail out there and I did my big long burnout, and they were having to scrunch up against the wall to get away from that quarter panel, let me tell you. And all kinds of fun drag radial rubber specks all over those guys. It was like, they weren't there the next time I came up, let me tell you.
If you have a Mustang, you have to make sure that there's nobody out in front of you when you do your burnout.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the side, out in front,
I'm pretty sure I've seen Larry Larson make about 24 passes, and never have I ever seen him. I mean, that dude will do 400-foot long burnouts, back straight up at 90 mile an hour, parked on the line.
Oh, dude.
60 mile an hour with the door open.
Did you see the video I posted with the onboard data that he didn't have a 3-step limiter in the car at the time? So he was doing legitimate 220 mile an hour rear tire speed burnouts.
Oh, yeah.
People are like, that's bullshit. No way. No, I'm serious. It's in top gear and he's wanging it up there.
Right. Well, and there is a no stage help rule. I mean, Larry is no way, no how, nobody is staging him in the car. That just does not happen. And I mean, that's one of his big things. And yeah, he loves doing the big long burnouts. In fact, when we were at Redemption at Ennis last fall, and they wouldn't let us do burnouts past the starting line, and which I don't agree with, but it's their rule, so it is what it is. But we were disappointed because Larry and I were going to line up with the wagon and the truck, and I was going to do a 300-foot burnout right there next to him. And I was going to kick the door open and everything and back it up with the door open and the whole deal. Oh, yeah. And Larry was laughing his ass off.
That would have been
like,
awesome,
oh my God,
dude.
that would be the best. The crowd would have went nuts for that, right?
That would have
we'd have gone nuts.
been a highlight reel. Oh, Lord.
I know, and they would not let us do it. We asked, and they were not having any part of it. So
that would have been hilarious.
Sometimes,
oh yeah,
short, because think of the publicity they could have had for free out of that.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Well, you know, but you can't make everybody understand the possibilities all the time, you know. But that's okay. It wasn't my circus. It was just my monkeys. So, you know. Okay.
Man, it's like rant week.
Man, what do you guys? I got all these smart dudes on the phone tonight. I got media experts, drag racing gurus. God, Dan Park is even listening. Dan, you almost should join in with us. Who do you guys got some questions tonight? A lot of people like kind of complain that we have too many guests recently, and we don't get back to our good old roots of just taking questions and trying to knock them out of the park as best we can. So, some of you guys want to get some tech questions. The first one I saw was asking if Bill made Drag Week. Bill, are you coming to Drag Week?
Yes.
He got in. Awesome. Very good. Bill's in. Rye is in. Doc McIntyre's in. I know that. Jeff McConnell.
Hey, Bill.
They're trying to decide what they're taking.
But I'm also looking to go to Rocky Mountain Race Week as well.
Excellent.
Pat and I were working on that today.
Yes.
I've got it on my calendar. I'll be there.
Yeah, it's too good an event to pass up. So, and this is going to be the biggest year. I'm sure there's still a few spots left. And it's like you said earlier, it's just so much fun.
It's so much fun because it's literally like it's a little bit more pure than Drag Week because since there's no magazine there, you don't have guys dressing up in T-Rex costumes doing whatever they can trying to like get in the magazine because their cars are shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you don't have that whole crowd.
No.
Please put me in a magazine. So you don't have those guys there. And you also get, it's a little bit more sensible on the racer. Number one, your family can tag along in another car. And it just like, they just say, hey, just don't have spare parts in that other car. Okay, cool. Nobody's cheating because nobody has to cheat.
Well, and we started last year, we started a thing so that it's called Road Week. So if you want to come, and there's no limit on these. So if you want to come and just hang out, right? And see Larson and see us and see everybody racing and hang out with Doug and all them and just have a good time. But you don't, want to race. You don't care about the racing, but you still want your t-shirts. You want your goodie bag. You want to hang out. Then you can do Road Week and you get to do the whole thing. And like you say, as long as you don't have a spare Lenko in your car that just magically fits in mine, like then you're totally cool. You're totally set. It's real kid friendly, which sounds funny. And it's way more laid back, which is odd though, because there's also 15 grand on the line for the winner in, Unlimited. So, I mean, there's real money and yet people are somehow more relaxed. It's weird. It goes against everything that everybody said. When they first started Drag Week, it was like, there's not going to be any money. It's going to be for a jacket and a trophy only. And that way, people won't go crazy with it. Well, A, we all went crazy with it. And B, I just think that the money is a cool thing that Matt has added to, RMRW. And I love the event. I mean, we've been going since the get-go. It's Daphne's favorite. She just always loved that event more than Drag Week, even though, well, hell, that's where you and I met Scott with, she and I had only been dating like 3 weeks on the first,
Well, back then, Drag Week was like what Rocky Mountain Race Week is now, right? So
exactly. That's exactly it. It really is. It feels like the old Drag Week. And the other thing is that there's the limit on the number of cars that can enter, so that everybody still gets a ton of passes. Like that's the one thing nobody ever has said about Rocky Mountain is, oh my God, I wish I had more runs that day.
Yeah, you can hot lap all day long.
Oh yeah.
Hey, speaking of which, we just added Dan Parker on board here. Can you hear us okay, Dan?
Yeah. How about y'all? Can y'all hear me good?
Kick ass. We hear you fine, brother.
How are you, Dan?
Doing great. Just come in the shop, working on a Corvette, making a Zeus tab for the rear partition to seal off the water tank and the batteries to the front. Having a good day.
Nice. He's fabricating today.
Dude, I love watching you fabricate. Every time there's some little video of you fabricating, it makes me feel bad because I can see and I can't do that shit as good.
Dude, how about you, Chad? You at least can do something, man. I look at the stuff he's done. I watch his videos. I follow you relentlessly, and it's like, man, I'm getting up early in the morning because of Dan. I'll sit there as soon as I wake up at 5:30 now, 5:45. I'm like, you know what? Dan's probably up out of bed doing something right now. I better get my ass out of bed.
That's because I don't sleep because my body does not know when it's daylight or dark.
Oh.
That's a real thing. You and I talked about that actually a couple months ago when you and I were on the phone. And you were saying that's really that's a big deal, is trying to get your body back into a regimen, right?
I was on some medicine for a year that's supposed to reset my circadian rhythm for that. It didn't help me, and I attribute that because my brain injury also. The struggle is real. Most nights I go to bed about 11. I wake up at 2 or 3, and some nights I go back to sleep. Some nights I don't. That's just part of it,
Yeah, that's crazy.
When y'all talking about the lineup people in the beams, I drove a 3-second nitrous promod pass before the wreck, and nobody ever put me in the beams. I sort of wanted to put myself there, and I always felt if somebody's up front, that was a distraction. And if you boom a nitrous through a, motor, you don't need to have an intake blow up, take out your crew member. So it's a safety thing too, also,
So now when you stage the car, when you're doing your testing runs and stuff that you've been doing, does your co-pilot tell you you're getting close, or do you have somebody behind you with the radio, or how does that work?
Generally radio. What we're going to do with the new car, we're going to have somebody behind us, the radio, because we'll have a chase vehicle. Also, of course, the chase vehicle won't be able to go to 200 miles an hour, but they give me clearance that the track's clear, ready to go, and everything's good, and that's how I start. At the drag strip now there. Yep, same way.
That's cool.
So, well, good deal. What kind of questions y'all got for the live deal tonight? The big tires go on the back.
That's what I was just looking at, actually.
I actually came up with a question of my own.
Oh, Lord. That's trouble.
Well, there's a listener made a joke about how much power can you make with twin turbos but no crankshaft.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And so I said, I answered with my normal reply is that internet power, magazine power, or actual power that he's wondering about. And what's actually more? Is internet power more, or is magazine power more? I don't know the answer to that.
Chad, what's your opinion on that?
Okay, well, I have a couple of opinions on that, and I'm willing to share all of them. I'm in a mood today too, so
Really? I couldn't tell.
I know. Hey, dude, my dually is pissing me off. We're gonna cover that later. I have a problem with the term magazine or internet numbers when you are talking about a media outlet, and that's because on more than one occasion I have been at West Tech running a test on the dyno, and that test ends up in some magazine or on Bang Shift or whatever, and somebody goes, "Oh my God, you're doing it wrong, blah, blah, blah. This is how I would do it." And
that's actually me doing that. Sorry, go ahead.
Only every once in a while. And most of the time the people don't know what they're talking about. And then on several occasions, Steve Brule and I at West Tech have offered to pay for somebody's trip for them to come out and for them to tell us how to twist the knobs, what to do, everything, and see if you somehow make a different number or whatever than we did.
Well,
and it's crickets, because everybody's an expert until you need their name for an airline ticket.
I happen to be an expert in this field. Sorry.
There he is.
No, but seriously, let me just point one thing out, though, Chad. I know of 2 engines that we did send. I love Steve Brule. Good dude, man. Great dude. But I know of 2 engines that we sent out there, and they were like 12% higher across the board on engines that were tested on dynos by me personally that I hung the weights on. So, I mean, I think the lesson is that you can't compare dyno to dyno very often.
No.
I mean, I say that, but I've been able to do well with DTS and Superflow that I've hung weights on. They always seem to read kind of close to each other. But I mean, so it's not, maybe it's not something they're doing wrong, but I don't see those magazine or media outlets often telling people that, hey man, your dyno may read different than this one. You know what I mean? Because it actually created quite a bit of a little bit of a tussle with the people that manufactured or made those engines, because their published numbers are considerably lower than what were made on that dyno out there. And it's just an example of the differences in dynos. And here's why I push back a little bit. When I'm the guy, I don't mean to be the hater, don't get me wrong, but so there's guys who test parts for magazines. They are magazine employers, or they are independent contractors who sell advertising. And then there are guys who make their living doing development programs on a dyno, like Tom Vigu here, testing engines. You know what I mean? You don't see, generally a guy like Mr. Vigu wouldn't do a magazine thing, because what he's developing is private stuff. You know, so you gotta look at both sides of it, man. Those of us that do this stuff professionally try to make our living going around doing development and testing programs. And then you have some, pardon me, but some fucking magazine guy, oh, I tested this, blah, blah, blah. Dude, your test methods, did you realize that just to compare two things, like real testing might take 50 pulls? You know what I mean? They're not, I mean, they're presenting themselves as like dyno experts and great valid tests. And a lot of times they're not that great. So that's just the counterpoint.
Well, and
there's not a one of them that ever, there's not a one of them that ever displays uncorrected data.
That's the other thing that drives me up a wall. I want to see the uncorrected data, and I'll do my own hand corrections. I'll do my own hand corrections.
There you go.
Yeah. You know,
because most tests, when they're done, A/B test, most of the fault is in the dyno room itself. It's not up to repeatability.
So Brad Nagel,
yeah, but
is
here's
a guru.
one problem with the uncorrected, though. Here's the problem with uncorrected numbers. For you and I, looking at uncorrected numbers were there, that's, you know, a thing. But if you throw uncorrected into the mix with your average guy reading a story in a magazine or online, then you're just throwing another level of confusion in there.
Or you're taking
and you
one
also
out.
have to remember.
Or you're taking one out.
Taking one out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Explain the difference.
Yeah.
When you do a test, if you were going to test, let's say, a spark plug, you need to make 3 back-to-back pulls. Look at your first pull versus your last pull, uncorrected.
Not if the spark plug starts coming apart and you can't get 3 pulls on it.
E3.
Well, then you've chosen the wrong part to test.
Right.
Then you have used spark plugs. You do realize there's only 2 manufacturers still making a spark plug worth owning today, right? They're horrible. Oh my God, spark plugs.
As any example goes, most of this stuff people heat soak. And they would go out there and they make their little twist or the little change or the little whatever they're going to do.
Yeah.
They come in, they whop the dyno, boom, big numbers. That's not a fair test.
Listen to this, man. God, Brad, dude, listen to this. Hang on. Brad Nagel showed me this at Engine Masters Challenge. Did nothing but get the oil and fluids up to a different temperature. And a 700 horsepower engine had a 40 horsepower difference just on uncorrected numbers, on measured torque and power. Just 40 horsepower difference by fluid temps alone.
Yes, sir.
I can't even do that much in the tune. By fluid temps alone. Nobody's reporting fluid temps in those magazine tests. Yeah.
Oh, that's not true. That's not true. 100% not true. Every run that we make on the dyno at West Tech that's for any story, the runs are all made with the water temp within 1 degree and the oil temp within 5 of where
they should explain that. They should explain that because it helps their case. But then are they doing a series though? You always see one test here, one test there. Well, what happens if I do A, B, 25 times? I know like when and I don't know about what Tom was doing at the NASCAR level, but when the tier 2 OEM guys would have me come in and do testing, like I wasn't even allowed to know what we were testing. I was just running the dyno and a series of the same things over and over and over and capturing as much data as I could. I mean, I don't know. It's true blind testing. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, but you got to remember.
Sorry, Dan.
You have to remember what the point of the tests are also.
To sell advertising.
So if you're no, that's not what I mean. If you are if you are putting together any particular combo, I mean, I don't even care. It could be something crazy like a 3-valve mod motor, right? if you're doing a combo and your whole goal is to determine which parts make the most horsepower because you're trying to build some race combo or whatever, then you may be doing a million back-to-back tests with a bunch of different components. But if you are instead going, okay, you know, I have this 3-valve and I'm going to test 3 different intake manifolds for it. And generically speaking, we get the same air-fuel ratio and we make things happy that way, play with timing a little bit. Hey, you know what? This one's 10 better than that one. This one's 6 better than that one, whatever. You know, that's merely showing that the parts will provide an increase in this particular combo. But it's not necessarily a test to show the optimization of a particular combo or an optimization of those parts that are, you know, that are there at that moment either. You know what I mean? So,
well, you know, me and Scott have had this conversation multiple times, and
I'm always tearing it apart.
Well, I know you are, and this is my point. It's what Chad just said. There's a difference between superlative testing. When you go put a combination on a dyno and you are trying to get absolutely every horsepower out of it, and you're finding everything that'll do. There's a difference in that methodology and comparative testing between parts.
Correct.
There is a different approach and a different outlook.
Let me just tell you that it's not done that way at pro level racing or at the OEMs. So, I mean, it's cool.
Who says that we're sitting here trying to do something at pro level? We're just sitting here trying to analyze what the delta is going to be between these parts for a given situation.
Yeah, exactly. But give some examples of that, though. I tried 2 different intakes, but I didn't change the ignition timing between my 2 tests. What the hell is that?
Yeah, how did that affect fuel flow?
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of variables.
Yeah. Or the one intake is designed for 1,000 RPM higher power band, so we should have changed cams, too.
I mean,
well, but you can't always. Yeah, but you aren't then doing apples to apples. You can't do that. See, that's a problem. If you look at it and you go, okay, I want to.
What user's going to decide on that intake and not change the timing to where it makes max torque? What user's going to do that?
Timing is one thing, but if you're going to change the camshaft to go with that intake, then you're no longer testing an intake manifold. You're testing.
Well, that's because we're testing combinations for the given piece that we're working on. That's why.
And that's totally okay, but that's a different thing than saying I have this combo and I'm going to test these 3 different carburetors on it, right? So if you are doing 3 carburetors, but you decide, God, you know what? This XP850, that sucker is great, but man, it would really like more camshaft. Well, then you're not testing 3 carburetors anymore. You're testing another camshaft.
Yeah, but Chad, this is the fundamental fallacy of the apples to apples comparison, and magazines have been built on that for years. So we're going to change one component back and forth to assess, you know, which one's which, but the rest of us in the real world are trying to figure out those other combinations of things. So it's like, I'm going to compare a tunnel ram to a single plane, you know, manifold. Well, now I'm going to change some things up. And then am I optimizing the timing curve? Am I optimizing, you know, how it's fueled, you know, to get the most out of it, which was always my frustration with those tests. So, you know, the magazines have to do things and media has to do things to serve a particular audience point of view. And I think a lot of the listeners to this podcast, everybody are looking for a slightly different point of view, which is, how do I optimize a combination? What is the set of changes that I'm going to do to get the most out of it? And it's there, you know, no one thing is right or wrong, but I think we just have to, you know, lay out, this is the purpose of this versus this is the purpose of a different type of testing. And the bottom line is none of us have the money to test the way the OEMs do. So while an ABA test is ideal, most of the time, you know, we're constrained by how much money we have and how much dyno time we have.
What about the whole confirmation bias thing? What about the confirmation bias concern? So I'm a magazine guy, or I'm a media outlet guy. My end goal is to sell advertising by picking up viewership, right? So, I mean, that alone, now I've got advertisers, I've got sponsors. I mean, dude, West-Tech is sponsored by Holley. Right? Well, Holley's an official sponsor. I couldn't give a class there because I wasn't teaching Holley classes, right? I'm okay with that. Nothing against them. I totally get that. But it's a little disconcerting to be I mean, I wish they would just say that. Hey guys, we're just testing this out. We're sponsored by this. I just don't like it when it's presented as if this was like an industry standard level type of test or something. That's all. It's
yeah, but plenty of other fuel injection systems get tested there by magazine editors who go, I want to do a test with a fast. I mean, and nobody cares. I mean,
sure.
That's
sure.
Not, there's no, the Holly makes more power than the fast or.
Well, one of the big problems though is that they often don't say that, hey, we're purposely building a combo that works better if we use these things and we're going to prove that to you. They often just go, oh, here's the better piece because it did better. They don't say that we designed this whole chain of events that we made, the camshaft, the heads, the intake, to reflect that this is the better piece. Or to show, they don't say, we're trying to show you that this is the way this piece excels is by using this cam and this intake together, right? If they would say that, a whole bunch more people would understand that it's not the intake that made it better. It's not the cam that made it better. It is the combo of both of them that made it better.
Well, I disagree with you on that in a certain extent, because there's been a lot of testing done at West Tech and you know, a certain person's done that testing and it's been comparative. And the point of the testing was you have this LS engine, you have a hydraulic roller, street style oriented camshaft. So let's find out what the best piece is, like the intake manifolds, for example. I mean, at one point in time, I know 19 were tested on in one particular session.
Yes.
So the best one for that camshaft, that engine, that day with that cylinder head was tested.
Did they explain that? Did they explain that though? That it was in the actual print article that went with it. I honestly don't know, but at point in time, Facebook posts and other explanations about what the whole premise was behind the test was, you know, put out there. I mean, part of that stuff was. I mean, I provided parts for some of that testing.
Yeah, but considering what they were trying to do, I thought they did a good job of portraying what they were trying to do. And they said, hey, this is what the engine is, and here's what we're testing it on. And they even said on some of the intakes, hey, if this engine was, you know, would operate at higher RPM, this intake would probably be better, but that's not what we were testing.
And I got to give them some credit because what's the alternative here, guys? I mean, here's me complaining about, they're not doing it perfectly well. The alternative is they couldn't do it at all. So, you know, Richard Holdner, I give you a lot of shit sometimes, but at least you're out there doing it. So credit for that. You know what I mean? There you go. You heard me say it.
And all these articles are written for a specific demographic. You know, automotive fans, if you will, are basically, it's a pyramid based on, you know, knowledge base. And the vast majority of them make up the foundation of that pyramid. And that's pretty much your target. So if you write a bunch of articles that are going over their head, nobody's going to read them.
Yeah, no, this is true. I get it. They got a target audience. I just,
you know.
Well, and Bill,
Scott and I are both friends with David Vizard, and you know, he's written a lot of magazine articles over the years. And the one thing that David told me, he said, you know, when you're writing an article about a product that was, say, sponsored or for an advertiser, he goes,
man, that's dicey.
He goes, it's your job. It's your job to find what works well with it, you know, and maybe not everyone can make it work well or anything. And the intake manifold test kind of points at some of that, because one of the intakes that they tested was from what would be considered a lower grade manufacturer. And they kind of glossed over it because it was part of the test, and they didn't, you know, they aren't going to you a lot of these tests, you don't ever see anything negative said about a product. You'll see the positive points, but you'll never see anything.
David said a lot of his articles went south. It became less popular, people picking up his magazine articles, because he would put in test whether or not your shit won or not, whether it lost or not. And that became out of vogue with the magazine and advertising guys. And it's like, hey man, if I'm spending $80,000 a year with you advertising, or $18,000 for my postage size stamp and 3 months worth of hot rod, then, you know, I'm going to expect you not to
make it look good. Make it look good.
Make us look good. So I understand.
Yeah, but some of those like intake tests, though, if you're going to test intakes, you need to test several intakes that are exactly the same, not one with short runners and one with long runners with no other changes.
When a guy pays me to test it, go ahead, John.
Well, my point on that is to show people how bad they're screwing up when they take. Let's take, for example, the hydraulic roller LS engine. It's what I always go back to. It's what I know the best. It was done, and I requested a couple of those intakes be included because I wanted to point out how bad average power suffered when you put an intake that is glaringly wrong for the engine combination on the engine and make a pull. And that was the point, is I used that as data to try and show people that exactly how good the stock intake manifolds are and how
for the normal operating range.
For the normal operating range of a street-driven hydraulic roller LS engine, turbo LS engine, so on and so forth. So not only is it an attempt to show people what's right and what are the correct parts, it's also sometimes the point of the test is to show people exactly how bad it can get when you pick the wrong part.
What's interesting is most people leave out the fact that the one that makes the most horsepower on the dyno doesn't necessarily run the fastest on the track.
No,
it won't accelerate.
And one of the things I try to point out with people, and it's one of the things that I try to point out to people when we do these tests, is I try and take it and I try to, because it's basically impossible to expound on the information provided 100% in that situation. It's
Bewley, and just personally, opinion. I'll tell you right now, I love how you get online. I mean, so you guys have engaged some of these guys to do some testing for you, and you've participated in some of them. And yes. I love how you get online and explain what you're explaining right now. That's one of the reasons we're friends, even though we disagree on some stuff. Just because you at least get on there and try to cover for this and explain it, which I do appreciate it. But I'm telling you, dude, some of those guys don't. I wish they would.
No, some of them don't, and that's fine, and it is what it is. But that's when it falls down. I feel it falls to like the next tier in line. That's when it's the person who is selling this stuff to the public. It's their responsibility to understand that and maybe translate that data into something that can be explained to the people that you're selling these parts to. It's like average horsepower. Let's take, for example, the test that was posted on Boosted LSX over a year ago. Somebody posted a dyno result of the Visner lid versus the stock Holley lid on a high ram on a dyno pull. And the tagline was, new lid picks up 56 horsepower. And it did. It was 56 horsepower better at peak.
Right after we plugged in the 8th spark plug wire. Sorry.
Well, no. That was part of it. But what the person who posted the test failed to expound on, it was the fact that the intake lid didn't improve until 400 RPM below peak. So there's literally a 400 RPM window where this lid is a quote unquote improvement. Well, they posted the raw dyno data, and I literally went back and did an average horsepower calculation for the RPM sweep that was posted that matched between the two lids. Well, yeah, the new lid was 56 horsepower better at peak, but it was down 20 average over a 1400 RPM window. And the stock Holley lid actually made better average power over that 12 or 1400 RPM window.
See, but here's get the car down the track quicker.
What we need is somebody to actually do an on-track parts dyno where they just go, look, this is the parts. Instead of doing a dyno, you need to go, hey, here's the new part. We put it on at the track. We did a whole day of testing. We swapped out parts at the track to show you what difference it makes in ET. Because that would be the thing that would really sell the part is, hey, we went faster with this part. We don't care what the actual dyno number says that it's peak this or whatever.
Yeah, but did it go faster because it matched the converter better or it hit the chassis better? Or
the Chevrolet and them did that years ago with all the Chevy crate motors in one car. They put them in a Chevelle and did it all in, like 2 days or whatever at Milan. And it was an ungodly expensive ordeal to do it because they did like, I don't know, half.
Mike Copeland was in charge of all that, wasn't he? They literally knocked it out in like 2 days. Yeah.
And
it was actually a really cool article. I remember that one.
It was really well done.
But do you know that it was a 6-figure article?
I'd believe it because it was GM Performance, right?
Yeah. So
you've got that many. You got that much money tied up in just the testing materials, just the different engines.
Exactly.
Then you've got the car. Then these guys I don't necessarily know it, but you go to a track for 2 days. I doubt everybody that was there helping R&R those engines was doing it for free out of the goodness of their hearts.
Exactly. Well, and let's say for the sake of argument that I put 2 monkeys together with me at Tulsa Raceway Park, where we could probably do it for nothing because, Todd and Keith love me and, we figure something out. If we were doing that and everybody was a volunteer and all these manufacturers sent parts and all of that, the expense still in travel and all of the ancillary crap that you have to do would still be thousands of dollars. I mean, you'd be looking at thousands of dollars to do that kind of testing for a couple of days at a drag strip, even if you weren't paying for the drag strip time. Now, if you were paying for the drag strip,
just in catering the food for the meals while they're there.
That's what I'm saying. I'm talking silicone and hamburgers, dude. It's going to cost you that, right? So, it's a huge amount of work to do that kind of testing, and it's cool as hell. But think about the amount of arguing that we'll do over, did you set the timing correct when you did these intake manifold tests? Let me throw that in my 69 Camaro, and then let's lob that one up, because the number of guys that are going to start bitching and moaning because the stall speed is off by 103 RPM. And oh my God, that's the difference, Chad. You would have run 980s with the 200 cubic inch combo if you just knew what you were talking about, because that's what every idiot expert online is going to say. Dude, can you even imagine that? I would rather you just send me the gun and the bullet, and I'll put it in my brain now.
I didn't know they had idiots online.
All right, it's in the mail.
It's in the mail.
So, guys, turning this around for a second, what's the best way to help everybody who's listening to the podcast be an educated consumer of this information? What should they read between the lines? What should they be looking at? How do you ask a better question about, I'm trying to build this packaging? Half the discussions I hear about are, will it fit under the stock hood? That has nothing to do with, making the most power, making the motor work. It has to do with other factors altogether. So how do we help people make that, think about those kind of things and put that into the, the thinking cap before they spend their hard-earned dollars?
Well, and that's why that's a great point to bring up, but this is where I say that you have to make sure you're catering to your audience, because while the vast majority of the guys listening in here are real serious about combos or whatever, the normal hot rodder, the guy that Holly and Comp and Airflow Research and Brian Tooley and everybody else are selling to, 90% of them have constraints that have nothing to do with horsepower that will determine the parts that they buy. And those constraints are either going to be, it has to fit a hood, it has to pass emissions, it has to allow me to run whatever thing, or even more common, is it pretty enough for my car? Okay, so
I swear to God, I want
one of the things you can do to help people with that is that you can tell them, look, you can either get a package that's super tidy, super clean, and is smaller, and it fits really, really nice, and sacrifice a little bit of horsepower for it. You can spend same amount of money for something that's a little bulkier, but may not fit and may require some more modification to your vehicle to make it fit. Or you can spend a little extra money and you get the smaller package with the extra R&D that makes it have a little more horsepower. Maybe it's a good middle ground for the guy who's willing to spend a few more dollars. Perfect example is being my own personal car, throwing a big block in it, got to make an intake fit. And I want to make it fit under the hood I have. I don't want a 6-inch cowl. I want to stick with the little 3-inch that I have. So my choices are limited on what intake I do. I'm building an intake instead. It's probably going to cost me 3 times what I could buy an off-the-shelf intake for. But for me, it's going to fit and do the job the way I need it to.
And you have a skill set. And you have a skill set that is equivalent to approximately 0.01% of the people out there wanting to build a performance car right now.
Well, right, but they could pay the extra money to pay somebody else to have that 0.1% skill set they need. That's what I'm saying. It can be done. It just takes more money.
It takes a little bit more time, and sometimes it takes a knowledge of who to know to be in contact with that can provide you those alternatives. Okay.
Yep. And some of it is just plain research. You don't buy the first kit you find. Look and see, hey, who else is making a kit? How many of these kits are there out there on cars? Are there any I can go watch? Are there videos of these cars doing this? Is there something that tells me real world interaction with this kit that makes it work for me?
I don't disagree with you at all on those points. And,
Nope.
And it's all relative because, I sit here and, I take 40, 50 phone calls a day. I talk to just an untold amount of people in a week's time. And between 9 o'clock in the morning and 5:30 in the morning, I've talked to God knows still how many people. And I've had the parameters, they change 24 times a day. It's the one guy calls and it's got to fit under a stock hood, takes your too ugly.
Oh, dude, this $5,800 short runner fabricated intake manifold has got to be awesome.
Well, it's got to be awesome because I paid big money for it.
Yeah,
it might look awesome.
Sorry, it's shit.
It doesn't even look. Some of them out there don't even look awesome. But it's just the reality of it is you have to get in touch with somebody that has knowledge about what you're wanting to build.
Yeah,
and half of this is more about who you know more than what you know. Because and that's a stance that I take in my business is I may not know everything. I don't even claim to come close to knowing everything.
But the thing you win at is you remember everything. That is totally what you remember. You've got 20,000 combos out there and you know what works and what doesn't. And
well, I mean, anytime you've got a database and you have a results package like I've got, and you have the ability to remember what does what's worked with what. Yes. Do I have an advantage in that of being able to remember all that stuff? Yes, because it allows me to offer reference to people, because the only thing people love more than buying new parts is knowing that they're buying something that's proven. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this intake manifold, this camshaft, this turbocharger, this car. If you follow this recipe, I can come within inches of guaranteeing you a result, and people love that. And, yes, I have basically built a business around being able to front and being able to front that information to people and show them the results that these packages have produced in the past with other people. But, there's so much, because you can't take anything at face value. All these tests, this, that, and the other.
I'm glad to hear that, because that's honestly the truth. If Bill's asking me the simple question of what do you tell people to be more educated when they see these magazine tests, don't take it all at face value, and don't blame the magazine guys necessarily, because they can't test it in every possible way. They can't
go that in depth. It's just not possible.
No.
So what you have to do is you have to take this test that is literally the tip of the iceberg, and you have to break it down and to find out what about that test is pertinent to what you're doing. And then you have to go down that particular rabbit hole on your search for more in-depth information about a certain portion of what was presented. And then you can go back from that. And no, Shannon Carnathan, I don't answer the phone that much because I'm usually actually on the phone already, and it's kind of hard to answer the phone while you're actually on the phone. That's the reason why I beg people to leave me voicemails.
Well, the other thing, though, about it, too, as far as advice to give to people, in my opinion, is also only question the things you need to question. Don't read more into it than there is, right? So if somebody does a test on a 6-liter, camshaft test, right? And you go, okay, we're going to test 3 truck camshafts. These are designed to be, targeting the guy that has a 6-liter in his pickup truck. And that's what this is for. This isn't a race thing. This isn't for you that took your 6-liter out of somebody's truck and put it in your Camaro. It's none of that bullshit. This is 3 truck camshafts that all can utilize stock, valve springs, whatever the parameters of the test are. And you run them and you go, okay, this one made 10 horsepower more than stock. This one 20, and the idle's a little rougher, so keep that in mind. This one made 30, and the idle is considerably rougher, and it will require a tune compared to the first one that the computer is fine with, or whatever, right? Sometimes that's all there is.
Yeah.
Like
it's sometimes that is all it is. It's just, you got to take shit at face value sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes you got to ask the very, very basic question of, hey, does this engine even remotely match mine?
Exactly.
Because if it doesn't,
Exactly.
throw the
That is
details
the
out.
brilliant
Other
words
than
right
the
there.
camshaft example being, oh, this one's going to be Lopey and this one's not. You know, okay, that's all you can take from it because nothing else matches your engine. Great, that's all you can take from it.
Why are you asking questions about a test for a 6-liter that's in a 5,000-pound truck when you own a 2,800-pound Fox body with a Power Glide?
Right. Speaking of which, dude, right now, Bill Fowler, there is a 1984 Mustang GT bare body shell, completely mint. It's only literally no fenders, no doors, just quarter panels, no deck lid, no interior, no nothing. It's perfect. I mean, it's perfect.
And I care about this. Why?
Because it's only $375. Because it's only $375.
Now let's go to the other end.
It's
gone already because you just mentioned it on.
Right, it's done. It's gone. and then let's
Inland Empire.
Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. I saw a 1983 Mustang GL, not even a GT. It was a GL in medium yellow, which I think was the predecessor to the butternut or whatever, the one everybody goes crazy for.
Right.
And dude was asking $9,000.
What?
No lie, Chad. $9,000.
I have seen some serious garbage for way high prices because they think that it's gold for some reason.
It's a GL. It's a V6 car. It's got a freaking carbureted 3.8 in it.
Wow.
Can't even use
that. I care about this. Why?
Oh, it's anecdotal.
It's cheap. You know how you are. I know you're likely to bring home strays, Bill Fowler, like me. Why I have 6 project cars going right now.
Let's divulge in this and let's actually take a tech question. Let's see if we've actually got a question we can answer.
Do we have one from somebody else, or can I give one?
Throw one out there. I've seen a couple get
go
posted.
for it.
We're going to touch on.
Okay, my dually, 87, throttle body injected, right? The guy that owned it before me did some old man modifications to the thing, which I have unscrewed them, right? But now I have a problem where if I walk out in the driveway right now and fire this thing up, it will fire up and it will sit here and run for 5 days straight and never have a hiccup. If I drive it across town, 50% chance the thing is going to die while driving down the road at some point and then not restart for an hour or maybe longer, who knows? And then randomly it will just work.
That sounds like it's the fuel pump overheating or dying on you there. If a lot of cars would do that they get vapor lock, they would go ahead. I hear you trying.
I've had several of the TBI Chevys. The injector will go bad, and when they get hot, the coil will go open on the injector, and it won't run.
Oh,
there you go. Fuel related. There you go.
And also, the wiring harness where it runs through the throttle body, I've had that rubbed through, and it will ground out on the throttle body, and the injectors won't fire.
Wow. Okay, good to hear, because I have I know the fuel pump is working. I know that's fine because when it dies, when I turn the key back on, I can pump. And
often what it is it's just overheating is what you're seeing probably. And in this case, it does sound like it's more the injector overheating because that seems like the right thing to me. The fuel pumps on those sometimes would overheat as well. And after you drove it for half hour, an hour, they'd basically run, but you'd be getting a fraction of the fuel pressure. They go way down.
That was a lot more common on the CPI motors, the mechanical injected motors. The TBI motors didn't have a lot of fuel pump issues because they only run at 13 psi.
And see, this thing it has a new ignition module in it, new cap and rotor, that stuff within the last few months.
It definitely sounds like fuel related though.
Go put a new injector on it. Go get a new throttle body for it and swap it out.
See, and here's the crappy part.
Yeah, it's like 3 bolts and a couple stems that stick down in. It's super easy.
Oh no, I've done them a bunch of times. But the problem, or the thing that sucks about this, is that as the project vehicle that I am going to swap to a carburetor, don't boo me. That's just step one.
I applaud you.
It makes me mad because I just need this stupid bastard to run right so I can put it on the chassis dyno and make a couple hits on the chassis dyno to get a before number so that when I start as my baseline, so that I can start doing all of modifications to the thing and have, actual data. And I can't get the stupid thing to run consistently enough to even go over and take it over and put it on the chassis dyno.
Park it on the dyno overnight.
That sounds like it is the baseline.
That's there you go. I mean, you're going to have to do something or drive it over and let it sit in the parking lot for 2.5 hours before you do something else until it cools off.
I think that's pretty typical of the condition of all these square body TBIs. Like that's indicative of the condition of everybody, that the majority of them out there probably run just like yours. Yours is not an anomaly.
Yeah. And it sucks because I've built multiple TBI equipped things, growing up in California. Like I had a 92 Chevy that had a 388 inch stroker motor with a TBI still on it. So it would pass California smog. And the thing is, it actually had a big block throttle body on it and a bunch of other stuff that you couldn't tell when you were just looking at it. But it was so much work to get a, prom in that thing that finally was right, in it. It took forever, but we got it. It was fine. And I've done a bunch of them since. So this one is just so frustrating because all I wanted to do is run fine for a week and then it can go away. But I'll have to see what a throttle body will cost me. Maybe that's the smart deal.
You can actually just replace the injectors. You don't have to get a whole throttle body.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to
the injectors. The injectors are cheap. They're like $50 or something.
Okay.
Get the wiring harness for them too, though. I don't know if they come with it or not.
I'm going to go on the wonderful world of Amazon.
I bet you they're on there.
I'm sure they are. Everything's on Amazon, dude.
Amen to that.
Amazon Prime
Josh
life.
Yeah, me too.
I kill on that Prime shipping.
Josh, dude, at least once a week.
At least once a week.
Matt Vaughn, 1931 Model A hot rod, standard bore, 350 GM 4-bolt block, AFR, and a blower shop 671. Need to replace the blower carburetors. Recommend EFI throttle bodies with standalone.
That's about the only place I like some of the dual EFI throttle body TBI stuff is on top of a blower. I don't expect
it's great
it to be
on
awesome.
a blower.
It's not going to have awesome throttle response. Here's what I recommend, Matt. I recommend you spend money for an intake underneath that blower that's got injectors in the ports, like the boat guys and the dune buggy guys do, that have to have decent throttle response or part throttle load behavior. Otherwise, especially if it's on gasoline or ethanol, if it's on methanol, then you can run it super fat. But what happens with the injectors up top, even if it works okay for distribution, when you whack the throttle, the air gets to the chambers before the fuel does, because the fuel injection point's so high up in the airstream, and you end up with this horrible tip-in stumble. A couple of guys I know here in Iowa just went through that recently. They went to my class, Brad Rorta. Anyway, they it was expensive, but they had an intake made that would sit under their, I think it's a 10 or a 12. It's a 1071 blower on a big block, and when they put the 8 injectors down low and just a couple up top to keep the blower getting some fuel going through it, and a huge difference in throttle response. So if you want it to run good, try and get the fuel down low towards the intake valve. But if you want it to just look awesome and still work okay, sure, you can do the TBIs on top at your own risk, though.
Yeah, but
those combos don't always work.
But here's one thing though. What blower is it? What are we talking? What supercharger are we talking about?
671 from the blower shop.
Dude, it has to have fuel going in the top of that.
So blower shop Craig told me before he retired from there that it needs 1/3 of the fuel going through that particular type of blower. No, I'm sorry, that was BDS Craig.
Some.
BDS Craig.
Yeah, it has to have some though, because the thing about it is that the fluid helps seal it, helps cool it, etc. So for a roots blower, you got to have some fuel going through.
They want
the top
1/3.
of it.
They want 30% or so of the fuel going through it at any given time.
And,
that's not hard to do with a couple of injectors on top.
No, not even a little. No, that's totally good.
But what I'm warning him about is things like drivability. If you want to roll into the throttle and have fun and have this thing be throttle responsive, then you got to be able to get that acceleration enrichment into it. and it's you get rid of that tip-in stumble and that possible intake backfire if you get some injectors down low. That's the primo way of doing it. It's expensive. The next way, TBI's up on top. Sure, give it a whirl. Not guaranteed. I would give it 80% likelihood you'd be okay with it.
I've never had a blower motor that wasn't A, the quickest starting engine in history, and B, that didn't have really good throttle response. So I don't know. But I've never done a blower motor with fuel injection. They've always been
that's what you run into with EFI unless you run them super fat at idle. Good question, though. Yeah. What else we got for questions?
Josh Kimbrough asked a question. It looks like we've lost sound on Facebook.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm checking.
2 people just posted.
Oh, yeah.
Testing 1, 2. We're broadcasting sound. Wonder if we have to restart the video or something.
Somebody earlier mentioned for the RealTuners drinking game, you have to drink every time we have audio issues.
Oh.
We'd still be hammered.
Yeah.
Yeah, they tell me we're doing fine on everywhere else. I don't know.
They said it's working now.
It's working now. That would have been a Facebook thing. I didn't change anything there. I don't know what's going on, guys. Sorry.
Refreshing and it's working.
Just hit the
refresh. Looks like you guys are going to have to refresh button and reload it.
By Zuckerberg.
Yeah. Josh Kimbrough asked earlier
talking about Steven Crowder or something like that here, or the Bob Ross Foundation. We might be getting in trouble. So anyway. Let's see what else. Josh Kimbrough was asking about shift points, picking shift points. That's like his biggest concern this year, isn't it? He's asked that a lot lately.
Yeah, he's asked that 2 or 3 times.
Josh is a good dude, man. I don't know if you know him or not. I don't know if you've met him.
Oh yeah, he's nice car, beautiful, absolute. Listen, the absolute most beautiful, one of the most beautiful second G Camaros I've ever seen.
Only because it's got your
that
parts
car,
on it.
You could. Well, it's some of them, but
I'm teasing, man. I was giving Doug shit the other day about that. I'm like, oh, come on with your Facebook posts that are like, I don't normally dig a V6 swapped S10, but that thing is sick. It's like, yeah, it's got your parts on it. Sorry, carry on. Josh's car is super badass. I don't want to minimize it. Venom built him a hell of a combo for that thing. It's
Jim and Reed did a damn good job on the engine.
Clearly deep in the sevens.
Yes, it should be. It should be. But picking shift points is all about finding the RPM window on your transmission that gets you the highest average horsepower out of the motor. So you need to do it. Once you go to the racetrack, you literally need to do just a shift loop test. Pick an RPM you think the motor will be happy at. Make a pass. Change it 200 RPM. Raise it 200 RPM. And look at the mile an hour. Try and make the runs as close as possible as far as fluid temps, all that stuff. Try and get them as close as possible so you eliminate those variables and isolate the fact that the RPM change, the RPM range change that the engine is operating in is as close to isolated as the only variable as possible. And follow the mile an hour. Literally follow the mile an hour. If the mile an hour picks up, then raise it 200 more and keep raising it until the mile an hour goes away. And then come back 200 mile an hour to whichever RPM got you the highest mile an hour, and where that particular boost setting and everything is going to want to be. And it may not necessarily be the same. If you up the boost, a bunch more power at it, the shift points might change. So you have to be, my suggestion to you is to get the power in the car first and get the car up to, and then start chasing that 2 to 3 mile an hour on the shift point.
He's going to get it. That guy's really good at catching his data. He did an awesome job. Last year's combo, he had a head sealing issue, and he went ahead and did the coolant pressure sensor before the beginning of the season and EGTs. This was so cool. Literally on the first pass, is somebody drowning in the background there? What was that noise? Sorry. Anyway, on his first pass,
got in a fight for his ice glass.
He saw pressure getting into the cooling system, and he saw which hole it was because that hole started going cold. It was actually leaking coolant into the combustion chamber and putting combustion gases into the cooling system. And, it's like a $40 sensor for the coolant pressure. But anyway, Josh was all over that last year. Like, his data was so good that we knew right away what was going wrong, knew which head to pull off the motor, saved him half the work.
Yep.
It was good stuff.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool when a combination of sensors like that can isolate a problem for you.
Yeah, it was under $700 in sensors total, I think, with EGTs and the coolant pressure sensor. And he's like, dude, you just saved me $700 in like my time taking stuff apart. 'Cause I know exactly what was wrong, and reading them knew exactly what was going on. But yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. Good story about our buddy Josh Kimbrough. Go see him if you're shopping for a new car in St. Louis.
Just so you guys know, the throttle body injectors are $50 a piece.
Yeah, I thought they was higher than that 50 a pair. Because the last pair I bought was about $100.
Yeah, but that's $100 to Randall Byrne message and said that he has the Holly factory replacement one that he can send me.
Randall's gonna hook it up. Yep.
Yeah. So I may take him up on that.
Now, did you say that you had it?
It has the new cap and rotor and ignition module.
And it's a 454, right? They had horrible issues with the distributor assemblies in those.
I know. And that's why I had put the risk taker. You know, that's why I had put the and all those things. And you know, tomorrow I'm going to check a few things, because the other thing is that there is an oil pressure the engine on this thing, where I do have an oil leak, and the switch will turn the fuel pump off. But it wouldn't explain why it won't restart then when I can hear the fuel pump running. So I don't know. I'm just grasping at everything.
You need a scanner so you can see if it's getting cranking RPM first. Start with that, because it might be something stupid there.
Now, that was going to be my next question. So this thing is an OBD1 deal. I have a scanner. Can I, it's a Bosch one. Can I plug into this thing even if it isn't throwing a check engine light? Will it tell me what's going on?
You can get some basic data, but it may or may not help you.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of.
$50 for injectors. That's unbelievable.
$50 a piece. Yeah.
Just the horror of having to spend $50 on 2 injectors.
So,
$50 each.
Hey, in unrelated news, does anybody have a coupon code for Billet Atomizer?
Good luck with that.
Okay.
I will better luck asking for a racer discount.
Break wallet
for those. Yeah. I'll give you $50 a piece for a couple of Billet Atomizers. Put on the thing.
The only coupon code I know about that is the stack of applications on the counter at the whatever ballet it is Bill's at tonight.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
What do you call it? The Tucson Ballet or the North Phoenix Ballet or whatever?
North Phoenix, yeah.
Ballet. North Phoenix Ballet. Yeah. That only coupon code I know that do you get
Keeping
there.
It classy.
Well, we're trying anyway.
We're doing good. We're just kind of having fun tonight, man. We've been so many nights with guests and nothing against the guests. Some of them we've collected and stayed on here full time, but it's a nice night just to sit back and BS for once.
Somebody asked this question a while back, and we didn't touch on it, and it's a pretty technical question, and I want to come back, and I'm scrolling back to it now, and it's Nate Inbody. It comes from Mixler. Any results to share regarding using methanol to cool intake air temp? If so, has anybody tested optimal placement? How much fuel was needed to cool the charge? I'm guessing, for in comparison to, temperature drop. He's got a small block Ford pro-charged, non-intercooled, quote unquote, high boost combination. And he's considering putting an atomizer 550 located within 12 inches located within 12 inches of the outlet of the Pro Charger, being controlled by a PWM with a Holly.
Free blower.
It's okay in small portions. I mean, I don't like to use meth as a fuel supplement because the distribution usually is pretty horrible, but in small portions, it can help with some cooling.
Yep.
Usually you want it less than 10% of your total fuel mixture. And once you start going beyond that, it really kind of shows its face on how uneven it gets. But if you keep it small, it's fine.
I'm a complete and utter within 12 inches of the outlet. Put the thing in front of it. Just get a nozzle with a solenoid and put a nozzle.
Put the nozzle right in the fucking outlet.
No, not right in the inlet. Put it in the mouth of it. Ignore anything anybody says about wheel erosion. Put it in the front. Let the blower help you atomize it. I'm 10-15% max fuel. The combination is on methanol for a main fuel. So I don't necessarily know that's, he might be able to get away with putting a.
If you're already on methanol, you don't need it.
Well, and some people like to do it. I have no problem doing it. I think it helps. Anything to reduce intake air temps is good. The reality of it is this has been tested since the 80s. And during the turbo era in F1, they were putting 40 to 60% of the engine's fuel pre-compressor on the turbochargers. So they had 4 injectors.
They also didn't run blow-off valves
ring.
And 30 plus PSI.
True.
Yep.
True. And
that's probably why they didn't run blow-off valves.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily want a blow-off valve when I was putting fuel. I would be putting fuel in pre-compressor either, especially methanol on something like that. That's kind of one of the things that
combine
I
that
don't
with the
like
distributor ignition and it's awesome. It's a light show.
Just let it arc between the spark plugs.
Don't do it.
When there's enough fuel in the air. Yeah. Disclaimer. Don't. But that is a consideration. If you do have a blow-off valve plumbed into the system, put the inlet. The nozzle needs to be after the blow-off valve to try and prevent methanol clouds from coming out of the blow-off valve when it opens.
Methanol clouds. I like that.
That could be bad news, man. Yeah.
Oh, dude, it can. I've seen hoods, let loose on D-cell because of stuff like that. It's not pretty. Not pretty at all.
So a lot of guys that run meth injection, regardless of placement, always want to talk about fail safes to prevent grenading their junk. What kind of fail safes do you guys try to implement with those?
Install a sufficient intercooler where you don't have to put the methanol in the motor at all.
Yeah, a good intercooler is really nice. I just see a lot of the less intercooler, the more often you are working on the motor.
Okay, but the number one thing that you can do, regardless of the combination is, regardless of any bit of the combination, is to understand that the skinny pedal on the right works both directions and it won't clear out.
They don't fix
you
themselves?
Can't reel the skip out of.
Yeah, when it starts doing something stupid,
they tell you that at Bonneville in the noob lecture when you're a new driver at Bonneville. Yes. They tell you the same thing. Like, First off, the pedal works both ways. Second of all, they don't fix themselves. Don't go down the track 5 miles, making us wait 5 minutes while you go 40 miles an hour and your shit's not working. Pull over. Let somebody else go.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can't fix stupid. So it doesn't matter how many dollars worth of parts you do or don't have. If you're too dumb to know when your junk is broke, then your junk is going to be broke a lot.
But for a serious comment on the situation, if you're putting enough methanol in the motor that it affects air fuel ratio, you're using too much methanol.
Yep.
Methanol, stop trying to be a limited octane hero. Use the methanol for cooling. Get the maximum benefit out of it in that aspect. Try not to lean on the methanol to fuel the motor, and then you won't need to worry about fail safes, because if all you're using
basically,
if you have,
like I said, if you do the math and you figure out how much fuel you're using on gas, and you can back figure 10% of that is the maximum that you want to use for your methanol, you're fairly safe at saying that you're not going to be changing the air fuel so much that you'll notice. It'll mostly do cooling. And beyond that will be where it starts to change things.
Or you could just use nitrous as an intercooler.
Yeah, which is what the smart kids do.
But nitrous is like 30% of the effective is removing heat from air as methanol is.
Interesting.
Why not both?
That being said,
it can be.
Nitrous will remove the heat just the same. Plus, you get the extra benefit of the nitrous itself.
Right, but the reality of it is the efficiency, the latent heat of vaporization of nitrous is roughly 30% of what methanol is.
Yeah.
So it does not work as a cooling agent as well
Not
as
nearly as
M1
well,
methanol or 50
That's a big deal if you're trying to knock
mix
out
of
100 or 200
methanol water.
degrees.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Say that again, Dan Parker?
Yeah. All right. That being said, like my NA land speed combination that's going to be on gasoline, 13.5 to 1, 427 LS3 on gas. If I wanted to put, atomization nozzle in the ram air, do you foresee that actually helping a decent amount? Just alcohol to take the heat out of the ram air?
Yeah, it could, but you're going to reach a point where you're going to reach a limit of how much is beneficial. Because
that's what I'm saying.
when you
a very small amount, just to take the heat out, like you were saying.
Yeah, and that'll be that'll be fine.
Just do it as far out from the engine as you can, because that gives you the
maximum
chance of evaporating and cooling and helping you.
Yep. You get to maximize the latent heat of a vapor.
Way better distribution when it's already mostly evaporated.
Yeah.
And the kits from Snow and AEM and all them are really good. And they make life easy because they come, like, if you don't want to have to, put your own kit together using parts, which is a doable thing and you can make a kit on your own. But if you don't want to have to go through the hassle, then there are several on the market that are just really nice and work good,
If you're down on horsepower, you could put a little nitro in it also, correct?
Yes. Yes is the right answer.
I don't know. I got a lecture about that from a nitro engine builder.
Just spin it more RPM.
Just spin it more RPM.
Dude, rev it to valve float and back it off 100.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
It'll be fine.
Just go to the pits and shim the valve springs up a little bit more. Right, Tom?
No. Change the keepers and get that spring out of there.
You are no fun whatsoever.
No, we're just like a bunch of 12-year-olds to this poor guy, Tom. I'm just glad he hangs out. But...
Hey,
you know what I have realized?
Hey, you guys want to hear a story about how Tom can help your race program?
Okay.
When we were doing Engine Masters Challenge in 2013, the rules for our particular combination, we had to have stud-mounted rockers, and I had custom. It was a mess. We got it to survive, but it would bust lash caps about every 3 or 4 dyno pulls. It was on the edge. In 2014,
put it this way: we were using the O2s per cylinder to tell which last cap busted off after 2 or 3 pulls. And I remember that, Mark. Like,
oh yeah,
you could see that one hole would go down 30% on fuel demand, and it would self-correct. It would pull out like 30% fuel to hit the target air fuel. Anyway, that was that was 11 or 12 or
that was in 13.
2013. That's right. Because then 2014 we got that sorted out. Yeah.
Well, in 2014 they allowed us to have shaft rockers, and it allowed me to run more push rod and everything else. The plan was to have Tom spin it, but because we were running an odd ass Pontiac, we would have had to have come up with a block and a crank, and it was too much for too short of a time period to do. So I said to Tom, drawing off of your experience, can we work with this base circle of the cam, and can we design lobes that we are fairly confident will work with, not a lot of, not an excessive amount of valve spring and not destroy the valve train. And Tom, you might correct me on how we went about this, but basically I asked for Tom's help. Aggressive rockers, because we were 2.1 to 1 ratio on the intake and 1.9 on the exhaust. We ended up at 240 something duration at 50, but over 800 lift. So, I mean, this is pretty aggressive stuff. And I got 3 camshafts from Tom, or through Tom. And after over 100 dyno pulls, pulled it apart, and the valve seats still looked like brand new, like they'd never been touched. To this day, it hasn't had any Valvetrain distress. That's what having a Valvetrain guy that can help you out will do for you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That was a neat project. I would have definitely liked to have spun that because we could have made it even better, but I'm glad it worked out good for you.
2.1.
Yeah, but even,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, even basing it off of just a general background knowledge, it was still a hell of an improvement.
Yeah. Did any of you look at that last video I just did?
But without a lot of time to test, I wanted to draw off of somebody with experience in that area.
Oh yeah.
And Tom had already played a lot with high rocker ratios and things. So do you have something to add to that, Tom? Because I left a lot of that on your plate.
As far as that particular package that we did for you? You still there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You meant as far as the Pontiac stuff we did?
Dahlquist, did we lose you, buddy? You still there?
It looked like Tom was trying to talk, but I can't hear him.
We hear him talking to you. That's really weird. Discord's all choking tonight, too. It's one of those nights.
So you can hear me, Scott?
I can hear you, Tom. Yeah. So, Mark, he's asking you if there was you're talking about the Pontiac, right, Mark?
Yeah. Let me reload Discord. Give me 2 seconds.
Go ahead. We'll come back to that one.
Drink. Being really, really hokey tonight.
Yeah. In the meantime, let's take a tech question. Justin Brumley asked. He says he's changed his starting line ratio from 8.1 to 6.9, and he was leaving at 3,405 psi week. With the new SLR, what would you start?
Come on.
Right. What would you start leaving the line with now? More RPM or PSI or both? I would honestly need to see a RPM trace of the motor. But I'm going to say at least 400 RPM and about 5 pounds of boost.
I would say start with the 400 RPM.
I'm going to say both and learn how to
boost.
control the launch with timing.
Well, he's got to find the point to where he's not scared of the car and actually not scared of going quicker than about 135 to the 60 foot. And once the car actually goes, like, the car should be able to, if it's been a 17. Holy shit.
Just leave on about 20 pounds of boost and 4,400 RPM and knock out enough timing that it's slow. You'll be fine.
The RPM trace of the converter after you leave is going to tell you where to put the RPM at, because the higher you get closer to the flash point, the less run the converter is going to have. And it could nose over harder because you actually raise the RPM on the launch. So what I try and tell people is I try and tell them to find an RPM point to where it's high enough that you can
wants to catch.
Right. Well, it's high enough that you can build the amount of boost that you need to leave with, but it doesn't get so close to the flash point that it stalls acceleration after you let go of the button. Because 9 times out of 10, the acceleration in the first 0.8 of a second will be higher if you can leave with less RPM and more power. So, and meaning boost. My guess is, I know you've got a PTC converter in the car. If I'm thinking correctly, I would probably be looking at 37 to 3,800 RPM and 9 to 12 to 14 pounds of boost on the leave, and find out how much you can leave without pulling timing. And then you need to do a launch retard table, start pulling a little bit of timing out of it, and try and get 3 or 4 more pounds of boost in the car when you leave, because you want all your mechanical stuff in as quick as possible. If you can leave with 4 more pounds of boost, then you might get to maximum boost 3 to 4 tenths quicker into the run. And then you can use the timing. You can use your launch control, your launch retard table with the timing to keep it hooked up and go as quick as you can to the 60 foot on that.
can I add something that the person talking
Go
about
ahead.
controlling it with timing? Years ago, when I was crew chiefing for John Gullett's Pro 50 car, this is the first time I'd ever messed with a turbo car. We were leaving, 14 pounds of boost. It was a stick deal, and the boost graph would just stair step all the way up. Not get the max boost until high gear. So this is pre 75-31 days or grid days, obviously, and so I just used a limit switch on the shifter. I raised the RPM 1,000 RPMs, went from leaving it 14 pounds of boost to 24 pounds of boost, and I'd have the timing on 0 through low gear. And as soon as the shifted Linko to second, we get full timing back in it. And then we went from, high gear full boost. We could make full boost in low gear at about 1.4 seconds, 36 pounds. And it would take it through low gear because the timing was on 0 and went from running, 640, 650s to 630s. And this was, years ago, 2,650 pounds when 630s was actually respectable for a turbo small block.
Right.
Yep.
But
It's still
we try to we try to make them leave as hard as we can with as much boost as we can.
Yep.
And then control the tire spin by knocking out timing so you're controlling the amount of power it has so that you can really, really leave on absolutely 100% of what the track can handle that way. So you're going to get the fastest time no matter what.
Because the timing responds infinitely quicker.
Way faster than everything else.
Than physically making the boost. So, you're going to need more RPM and you're going to have to find a sweet spot to give the motor the run at the flash that it wants. Because 9 times out of 10, what I have seen is the higher you get, the more goes it over so much to the point that the RPM will actually drop and then the motor will catch it and it'll start pulling again. And you don't want to do that. So
you got to find the point where when you hit it, it definitely still has room to climb. And as the boost comes up, it's going to want to climb more. So it's the more boost you put into it, the looser the converter is going to react because it's seeing more power.
Right.
So you got to kind of play with it and you'll creep up on it, add a little bit more boost, keep adding more boost until you find that point where it really just doesn't accelerate out of the hole because there's no converter to take it anywhere, and then back it down a hair and then go from there and literally let it eat as fast as it'll pour in the boost and then just turn up the timing as you go. Just slowly, start way low and it'll seem like a turd and just bring it up a little bit at a time until you find what the track can handle.
Say, we've got one of our listeners, Matt Vaughn, and his baby girl, his daughter, Casey, just turned 16 years old, and he wanted to give a shout out to her.
Happy birthday, Casey.
Happy
That's pretty
birthday.
cool, man. And so check it out. They're in Australia. They're in Australia. Matt's listening like tomorrow, right now. It's kind of funny. It's daytime.
Yeah, it's like next week in a day or
He's
something.
on Stephen Hawking's time.
Right, Chad?
Make her watch the movie 16 Candles.
It's in the future.
Oh, yeah.
16 Candles.
Has anybody heard any results from the dry lake racing in Australia right now?
No. Are they doing dry lakes right now?
Yeah, my blind motorcycle buddy, he said they were starting to run yet Monday at the salt over there. I know Valerie Thompson is shooting for 400, but I haven't seen any results posted anywhere.
Oh, we need to tune into that. If she's actually over there now, the Valerie Thompson effort is over there. She's trying to ride a motorcycle streamliner, right?
Yep.
Oof.
Can I just read about that next week when it gets back here?
Because there's no signal at the salt there. He said you have to go 150 kilometers down a dirt road to get to the salt flats there.
That's after you travel for like 2 days of back road that are sort of paved. Like Keith talked about that.
It really is.
No, it's super far in the middle of nowhere to get to their salt flats.
Yeah.
So cars have to go on like a militarized type of transport that can get off road.
Yeah, he said you don't anything you need, you have to take it with you. There's no going
to rescue anywhere. If you fuck up.
Yeah. What do they do for safety stuff out there? I'm not sure what they do. We got to have somebody to talk about the Lake Gardner is what it's called.
Lake Gardner, yeah.
Yeah.
They had to have an airplane standing by.
It's lunchtime Thursday, Matt Vaughn just told us. Happy birthday.
No, it's not. It's dinner time Wednesday.
That's what I'm thinking.
They just let the kangaroos and koalas eat you.
Yeah, exactly.
Scott, could you do me a favor?
Yeah, buddy.
Could you quit showing the damn Gen 2 LT5 on the video feed because I'm sitting here drooling, man.
It's in there for you, man.
I know, but I can't take it right now.
You know the story behind all these things here is like literally I just did a 10-minute.
It's so cool though.
I did a 10-minute dump with my phone. Dude, I'm the luckiest guy on the planet to be able to. They asked me to tune that, and the only reason was because they didn't have Lingenfelter put it together. Graham Bean, bless his heart, dude. That's a guy we need to get on the show. We got to get Graham on here. He is an interesting cat. He worked for Lotus and then for Lingenfelter for like 25 or 30 years, and then just recently retired to the hills of Kentucky, where he literally just fiddle farts around now. But yeah, exactly. No, he likes Kentucky. I see why. He's up on a hill on a lake somewhere. But no. So Lingenfelter put together as a what anniversary was it, John? 25th or 25th anniversary of the the fourth generation Corvette ZR1, and they Lotus had developed a new version, but I guess the LS1 basically kind of kicked it out of contention. But there was a new 32 valve 5.7 liter V8, and that's that picture that's going by there. Anyway, I got to tune that because they didn't have any ECUs from that era that worked, and they were using a harness that worked with they were using the harness from one of the first gen engines or whatever. And anyway, they were like, hey, this Clark guy can bring a science fair project ECU and hack something together. And that's kind of my specialty or whatever. And so we did. We put a little Mega Squirt kit system on there. And the cool thing, I'm waiting for these magazine articles to come around, but they put 2 of these engines in cars and sent them around with all the, like the Road and Track, the Wine and Cheese Crowd magazine editors or whatever. And Graham told me that they performed great. He said they did good. So I'm like, man, I hope nothing broke or anything, because we put a pretty quick tune on those cars. But we did some drivability stuff during a blizzard. We actually had those cars out in a blizzard in Indiana. But anyway, it was just a really cool deal to be able to work with. So that's what's going by, was that second gen LT5, what could have been the version 2 of that engine that there was only there's 2 of on the planet. That's another engine I like doing stuff that no one else can say they did, right? So
I would give untold amounts of wealth that I don't have to have one of those like sitting on ages staying in my office.
Dude, those motors had some yank.
I would die to have one.
Graham said awesome. They should make 500 horsepower exactly. They were hand drawn. They were one of the last family of engines that were not done on CAD. I guess the LS stuff was using the new fancy CAD stuff, and these were being drawn by hand. And he told me that they built the whole thing, was supposed to make 500 with the accessory drive on a dyno that was calibrated like they would have had at the time at GM. And it was, so sure enough, Lingenfelter has an AVL dyno that's 25 years old, but OEM quality. It's this real nice piece. Dude, the thing made like 500.5 horsepower on the very first pull. Then they got into individual cylinder tuning and timing per hole, and they picked up like another 35 horsepower. Thought that was pretty cool, but I think I got...
Yeah, but that's magazine testing. That's just what they want you to
No, it wasn't magazine testing.
Yes.
Love it.
It was not magazine testing. Dude,
fire that ass up.
Go ahead and make a pointless joke and think you're funny.
You have to admit that was some funny shit right there.
That was not funny.
Got to admit that was funny.
No magazine was involved in that. They're using an AVL dyno that costs $250,000. With Deepak acquisition.
Still funny.
It's still funny.
Yeah, it was funny.
Just shut up. Just shut up. It's still funny.
Yeah, don't ruin it for us. We're laughing.
God, Chad, I so love having backup now.
Deepak debt acquisition. Now that's real testing.
You're not allowed to be the only asshole here.
Thank you. At least Tom's in here trying to back me up a little bit. Dude, the stuff going on at Lingenfelter is way different than magazines.
I think actually we have gone over. I'm the tipping point, right?
we need to look at starting to limit it at this point, but it's still cool.
You all the tipping point, but I'm the man with the mute buttons under his fingers. Just keep on talking.
Power tripping. Now he's power tripping. Listen to this bullshit.
I think I'm just going to put those guys on mute for a while, everybody. So how's it going out there, I'm just kidding.
Now my question is, you mute us. Do we all still hear each other, but the public just doesn't hear us?
I did that for a second or two just to put a warning shot across your bow. But.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I don't know, because I'm only only listening to you on Discord, so I have no idea what it's doing anywhere
Right,
else.
you guys can't tell when I have you muted. I have to like announce it or whatever. But one of these
Yeah,
days
I
I'll
don't
get
even
fancy.
care. That doesn't matter. I won't shut me up.
Oh, we know.
I'm crying.
It's okay.
Awesome. Okay, I have another technical question.
Okay.
So the fuel injector, the throttle body setup that Randall has is actually a Holley projection.
Yes.
Anybody know whether that will just bolt onto my TBI intake or no?
It should, because that was based off of the 454 throttle body.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Or you could pop the injectors out and just put them in yours.
Yeah, they're the
Ooh,
same
I
injectors.
like you. I love you long time. Okay. Then I'm going to tell
I'm
Randall
not
to
sure
send
how to
it
take that.
however you want.
But seriously, grab the harness that goes to the injectors where it goes in between the air cleaner and the throttle body, and just kind of rub that back and forth as it's running and see if you can get it to misfire or stall.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay.
what goes bad.
Oh, because while it's just sitting here idling.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And then also don't forget about that distributor because it was super, super common.
I know. I hate to put a distributor in. Well, okay, let me ask you this. So I hate to put a distributor in it when I'm going to be taking the intake off and putting another distributor here pretty soon anyway. So should I, since I'm putting in a non-computer controlled distributor, if it is the distributor, should I just put set the timing and call it a day and it's still close enough for my testing, or what do you think?
It'll run fine with a non-computer controlled distributor.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I don't think I can check a wiring diagram for you, Chad, to see if it needs to see RPM signal from, but I don't like a cam sensor, but I do not believe the TBI motors have anything like that.
Mark,
so
what is the name of the super wicked wiring diagram software you have a licensed or a subscription to?
Well, there's various. I use Identifix.
So that was a good one. Sorry,
but I get motor wiring diagrams and then I get the OEM. But Mitchell has good wiring diagrams and All Data has they each have their own data. Yeah, they each have their own flavor. I prefer Identifix for what I do.
Identifix was tearing up my All Data. I had an All Data subscription for a long time, and then Mark started pulling some stuff off Identifix, and it was more accurate, color coded, really neat user interface. You got to check that out.
Yeah, the Identifix stuff is a lot better, but the All Data is a little more budget. I think.
What I like is I get the aftermarket stuff and the OEM, so I can I can look at either factory GM wiring diagrams, or I can look at the aftermarket version, and it's sometimes you'll be surprised at what you can learn when you start digging around. The GM stuff isn't always correct for the GM.
No,
and
right?
The aftermarket
I know, right? It's nice to know if there's some in dispute. Yeah.
And the aftermarket stuff is sometimes it's like you're looking at the wrong car. It's like nothing matches. So it's nice to have both. But Chad, I could check that to make sure, but I don't see any problem with running a non-computer controlled distributor in it. You just get a check engine light, but it should run fine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, if you can check on that, dude, I would appreciate it. Because if that's what it is, I don't want to spend money. Like I said, I don't want to spend money on parts that I'm just going to, take right back off. You know what I mean? So if I can just use the MSD distributor I already have and throw it in there, then great.
Aren't you a media guy? Just do a test for somebody. Get some free parts, dog.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for that all night.
I have parts.
Ramjet 532.
Touche,
I have
bitches.
Parts. I have an MSD distributor, but I'm not doing a test on factory, computer controlled small cap,
Well, we could go on the factory distributor. This thing didn't fucking run. On the MSD distributor, you get 112 horsepower at the tires.
Right.
Dude, you need to put a mag on it. That's the ultimate solution right there. Just put a mag on it.
Yeah, mag would be awesome.
Actually, mags suck. I don't like them at low RPM. They're not that good.
Yes, they do. They burn shit up.
Yeah, I don't know. I've had not the greatest.
And then they light you on. They light you on fire if you pick one up by the wrong part of the damn thing.
They hurt like a motherfucker.
Oh,
dude,
God!
They will nail you. Yeah.
Woo! I don't even want to think.
Just
about
breathe
that.
wrong near it, and you're too close, and it'll shock you.
Look at the 911 Roadster, guys. The John Beck and Pro Machine, those guys in Northern California run. It's a high boy Roadster that's been over 300 miles an hour at Bonneville multiple times, and it's basically a Roadster full of iron and concrete to weigh a lot. That's got a blown Donovan, 10 or 12-year-old nitro top fuel dragster motor in it, and detuned a little bit. But he said it still makes like 4,500 horsepower or something like that. Dude, to start that thing up, it's got 2 mags. They have one guy that's got like these wires in his hand. They get the motor spinning over, and then the one guy's got to yank the grounds for the mags, and it's a perfect technique to do right. Otherwise, they'll shock you all the way back. And this whole starting that thing up is a procedure.
No, I would rather crawl I would crawl my happy ass in the damn bullfighting ring.
The right way to do that, right?
No, he asked me, he's like, you want to do it, man? You want to start it? You want to light the ignition off? I'm like, nope. I'm going to stand back and take video about 100 feet back. And when that thing lights off and they blip the throttle, well, the guy that drives it went completely deaf because he didn't have earplugs in one time when they blipped the throttle on him.
Oh, God.
And it blew out both his eardrums.
His hearing aids died.
Yeah.
Shoo. Jesus Christ.
They are crazy. Yeah, and they drive that thing down the salt.
Yeah, by the way, Justin, I'll look at those data logs and get back with you. But I can't respond to the message you sent me on Facebook. Thanks to the Snowflake Nazis. So
yeah, don't forget the Ord in Ford GT.
Yeah, maybe I can respond to you. Maybe I can respond to you about Saturday when I get out of Facebook jail on my main account.
That's not going to happen because you probably posted that 3 more times than that, which means you're banned for like a year.
I know, right? I mean, this is only the 3rd one in a row.
What did you get banned for? What did you?
Hypothetically.
No, there was no hypothetically about this bullshit.
He just abbreviated something that he should have spelled out.
Yes, very, very much
Facebook took it as a bad word.
Are you sure some grumpy, angry person didn't just report
No,
it?
it wasn't. No, it's not, because literally Facebook has a bot. Everything that triggered this is me requesting my download file from Facebook, because they literally catalog everything that you do on Facebook and you can request it. So I requested
including things that you type and delete before you hit post.
Right. And pictures that you share. Yes, they have a file on you. It's miles deep. It takes them days to generate the file and send it to you.
Yep.
I requested.
Everything you type is recorded, period, whether you hit post or not.
Right.
Wow.
And just out of curiosity, I requested my file. Well, you might as well have shined one of them up 10 million candle power spotlights on yourself when you do that. And there was a discussion about the Ford GT, and ever since it came out, everybody has always abbreviated that FGT. Well, the bot sees that as a nice little derogatory.
But go ahead.
Yeah, the people
I've seen it, but
it does
not very often.
Done, but yeah. So I got a 24-hour ban.
That Facebook bot said John doesn't like the Fords anyway. We're gonna put 2 and 2 together.
Right. And I got a 24-hour ban. I got off of that, and within 5 hours of being off of that, I got popped again for the next comment in the conversation, and I got a 3-day for that one. I got off of the 3-day, and about 5 or 6 hours out of getting out of the 3-day, I got popped for the next comment in the conversation.
So the next time you go, next time you're free again, you need to just go in and delete all those before it can pop you again.
That would
totally
do you know innocent? Who you're talking about and what this man does on Facebook?
Yeah. For those who don't understand the abbreviation that he used, Facebook thought he was using a derogatory term for a gay person.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying.
It's not. He was not saying that. He was saying just 4GT abbreviated.
As my finger hovers right over the mute button. Carry on.
That's why I didn't say the word.
Listen, guys.
So yeah, I've been in Facebook jail.
It's time to go. It was a good time tonight. It's nice chatting with you guys. Good to have you on. Mr. Parker, you guys all stick around. Everybody stick around for a little bit. We'll chat for just a few more minutes and we'll cover some stuff.
What? You're kicking us off?
Yeah, no, it doesn't cut us off. It doesn't. You stick around though too, Chad. I got a story to tell you guys about today. It was pretty interesting stuff. But we got to let everybody else go
Okay.
because people got to get to bed on the
Scott,
west on the
before
East
you
Coast,
go.
man. It's 11 o'clock out there. We might do this an hour earlier sometime here
It's
soon.
dark in my house.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott.
Oh, man, you just got to come back every week, dude.
Girlfriend's jumping into walls again.
Blind jokes, dude. Oh my god.
Okay, we can end the show now. That's
was awesome.
we're not topping that. Just
No.
outro.
Hey, happy 16th birthday to Casey.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
happy
Casey.
birthday.
Happy birthday, Casey. We're sorry we're such a
All right, guys.